Okay, let's talk about, nope, not that. Hold on, let's talk about Brock Purdy. So, Brock Purdy, here, let me say what I saw from Brock Purdy, and then you say what you saw.
Okay.
In the macro sense, what Brock Purdy's doing is all good, right? He's ahead of schedule. He's practicing. He's getting preparation that we didn't expect. And theoretically, he's giving himself an opportunity to like knock the rust off and be ready for week 1. In the micro, he threw a pick today. It was his second pick in 3 days. And when he wasn't throwing over the middle or short, he had some issues. It was 3 throws. Maybe I'm making too big of a deal of him. But the first out to George Kittle, he just didn't have enough on it. It was a bad throw. They went right back to that pattern. And he did have enough on it, but he didn't see Dre Greenlaw dropping in coverage. Happens. So that was a mistake. And then he had Ayuk deep down the left sideline for what I thought should have been a touchdown. Hung it up in the air, still got the pass interference, still a spot foul, big play. Those are 3 things where I'm wondering, like, man, is that the arm? Are you rusty? Do you not have the arm strength you had? Or is that how you've always been? Those are my 3 things. Other than that, and then he fumbled on the last play, but that should never happen in practice. Cleveland Farrell, you're fired.
Wow.
You're fired.
Yeah.
Clear out your locker. Anyway, and I'm not saying like, well, that proves anything. Those are just me saying like, those are misgivings I had from his performance. So what'd you say?
I don't think he's ever been an impressive thrower of the football. It's all about Brock Purdy. The people who are going to argue for Brock Purdy are arguing about the results. Yeah. And he, at the end,
still 10 of 14. Touchdown, pick.
In a practice where he didn't throw the ball particularly well, he still completed 80% of his passes.
Sure.
The pick was the worst throw, I thought, because he just floated it. And
it reminded me of the pick he threw against the Raiders. It's he's a little bit different, but just like the trajectory, the distance. Anyway,
it hung.
It hung
in the air. It was not. It wasn't a bullet pass. It was a looping pass.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a bad throw for sure. I thought the ball down the sideline that you got the PI call was a bad pass. That hung too.
Yeah, it hung.
So he had a couple of passes that hung that were unimpressive for sure.
That was it though. That was pretty much it.
The rest of the stuff he was on time with and pretty accurate. But his whether you like him or don't like him, nobody's going to go out and watch him and be like, oh, look at this guy throw the football.
That's true. That's
not where his effect.
And I think in comparison to Darnold and Lance, like those two guys had some throws like that today, and they can be like that. So maybe in comparison to those two, Purdy seemed like, I don't know, the guy who had the most diversity today.
He doesn't throw the ball as well as them.
He also had to face the number 1 team defense. And that defense is legit. And they're going to pick you off like every freaking day, even if you're really good. Ask Trey or Jimmy. Like that happens.
Yeah, I mean, the Niners have a good defense. The defense, it's funny. The defense has been ahead of the offense until the last 2 days, and then suddenly the defense has given up 80% completion percentages.
Steve Wilkes, we're looking at you, Steve Wilkes. What's going on? Seeing a lot of blitzing in practice. Maybe it'll work in games, but so far it's leading to a lot of completions. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, we did. It's making some of the defenders look good at times. I thought Marcelino looked good. He got home on a sack today. But there's no question that I think they've got 3 viable quarterbacks, and for 3 guys that could start and win. I think they could win with all 3 quarterbacks. Based on what I've seen. But I mean, Darnold,
regular season games for sure.
Darnold's hit track record tells me that there's inconsistency around the bend for him. So I got to see him be consistent. Trey's touch, ability to throw a touch and timing is his challenge. I think he can process and he can rip it. It's just a matter of touch and timing. And for Brock, it's always going to be about, is his arm strength enough? And that's why, to me, that's the big factor, not necessarily his completion percentage. Can he make all the throws? Back to the dink and dunk idea. Is this guy, can he make all the throws post-surgery?
Fair.
He made enough throws today was pre-surgery, but it was a small sample size.
True. I felt like today was a bit of a dink and dunk day for Brock, but again, sue him. He's ahead of schedule. With Trey, To Lynch's point, the stuff he worked on with Christensen is starting to translate to the field. I think we saw that today. I mean,
No
he
doubt.
hit throws over the middle that we would see him miss. Like Lance, when he misses, a lot of time he misses high for whatever reason. Today, I felt like his ball placement was excellent. It was chest level. When he hit Danny Gray, it was in the chest. When he hit Chris Conley on the deep out, it was in the chest. Like he was just on point today. I was very impressed. And he doesn't always look like that. But if that's the new him, then that's great.
If he's making throws like outs, deep cuts, deep balls, anything that doesn't involve slowing down, if he's throwing screen passes or stuff where he's got to show touch over a linebacker, he struggles with that throw. But he doesn't struggle with any of the other throws. Any of the deep cuts, any of the post pattern, the go route, anything where he can throw the ball, really reach back and throw it, he looks really good. It's when he's got to, he's got the one they missed the other day to Debo, where Debo's right there in the flat. It's got to be a layup, got to be caught, and Debo didn't even get a finger on it. That's his final hurdle. Can he, if he can make that throw with precision, touch, and timing, I think he's there, right? What throw can he make?
Yeah, and it's like what's encouraging about it today is I felt like today he would have hit that throw. I mean, maybe I don't know. Maybe he's physically incapable, but I felt like today he was just locked in, and I could feel it early on. Like watching him an individual, he wasn't. I feel like yesterday an individual, every single throw was high. Every single time a ball boy caught the ball, it was like jumping up and reaching. It's like, that's terrible ball. Bring it down, Trey. And I think today he had it locked in. And I don't know, like if he can, how many times did John Lynch say stack days today? If he can stack days with this, if that's what he can do from now on,
well, there's
very
been
encouraged with Trey Lance.
To me, the most important part of camp for Trey so far is the part that most of the media walked off the field and didn't even watch. It was after practice on Friday, after he missed the throw to Debo. He stayed after the practice as all the media ran into the room.
Right.
He stayed after the practice and threw that same pass that he missed like 9 times in a row. And that's why I believe he's going to get there, because he's going to work to eliminate his mistakes. Because it means something to him. He's not just going to keep making the same mistake. Was it a layup throw? Does he have to make it? Yeah. But guess what he did after practice? He made that throw 9 times in a row because he knows that's the mistake that he's got to overcome. And that's why I feel good about the kid.
Yeah. And like when Brock Purdy surprisingly got cleared for camp and he's like pushed so hard to come back, I'm not surprised, because I think from Brock's perspective, he's got confidence. He knows he's good. But I think he also knows, to your point, that the Niners can win with any of these quarterbacks. They can win with Darnold. They can win with Lance. And if Brock's gone for a while and those guys have an extended, period with the starters, who knows what could happen? So Brock likes his spot. He likes playing with McCaffrey and Ayuk and Debo and Kittle. And he's not giving it up for anything. And so good for him. But if something happens and Lance has to play with this team and these players around him, I think he could do it. And I think I'm actually warming up to Darnold too. Like I was so snarky about Darnold, but frankly, he's been pretty good the last couple of days as well. And I think with all these weapons, it's kind of tough for a quarterback to play. You have to really suck.
Darnold's
to not play
energized
well
by
here.
this situation.
Yeah.
So you're getting the best of Darnold, right? You're getting the best of Darnold because he's playing with urgency and energy and optimism.
He wants to be here.
Yeah, and I'm sure after shouldering the load in New York and maybe to a lesser degree in Carolina, he doesn't only have to feel like he's not shouldering the whole load. He now feels supported. He looks around. He's got all kinds of weapons. He looks around. He's got the number 1 defense.
Coach wants him. Compare him to Steve Young.
Exactly.
And then from Lance's perspective, he was probably pretty upset that this quarterback competition isn't what he wanted. But now that he's gotten over the disappointment and he's like, okay, I can go compete with Brock and Sam. I'm just as good as Brock and Sam. Let me go show it. And I feel like he's finally got the right mindset and he's finally putting his best foot forward. And we finally got a good quarterback competition. Finally.
And I think you're totally right as far as I think Brock whether he's 100%, 95%, 90%, 85%. I think he's definitely over 75%. And
he's not 100.
Not 100.
Not 100.
But over 75%.
Mm-hmm.
And he understands that his window to establish himself as the starter is right now. And there's some urgency. So he's gonna push through because he feels like this is the key to him being the starting quarterback of the 49ers. And now it's a matter of all these guys. It's at the end of the day, Grant, it's a really kind of funny deal. They really all have to show they can be consistent. Brock's got to show that he can be consistent, even though he might physically not be quite where he wants to be. Darnold's got to show that he can be consistent, despite the fact that his career has been, filled with injuries, turnovers, and inconsistent football and just spotty play. He's got to be consistent, and Trey's got to be consistent. And so they're all got to, they got three quarterbacks that have to be consistent, that all have different issues that stand between them and being consistent. And then it's going to be riveting to see how the 49ers play their hand, because they've got three guys. And you're right. I think they could probably win with all three.
And also what's going to be interesting is what if Brock just isn't ready? It's commendable what he's doing. Work hard, come back early, get your butt on the field. But what if he's just not ready, despite the best of intentions, because it's a very serious injury? And what if Darnold is? What if Trey is? What do they do? I feel like the next month is going to be very interesting. We can't predict it, and you got to let it play out.
Right. I think Brock's going to get the first go at it.
Of course.
He's going to have to show
that
he can't do it. And then and if he can't, then who's going to be second up? Who's going to be third up? That's about who's more consistent this summer between Trey. And I'll tell you what I think is going to be maybe the key tilting point, at least in the next week or so, is how these guys do against the Raiders in the practices, against another team, against a defense that you're not scripted. They're doing they're defending you the way they think they want to defend you. They're trying to turn.
It's not a great defense.
Yeah. Not a great defense, but it's also not a familiar defense. Mm-hmm. I think those practices are going to be really interesting. I think the preseason is going to be interesting, and it's going to come down to points and who moves the team better.
I also think the 49ers are trying their best to make this a real, not like a fair competition, but something that is earned, not given. I feel like they've been giving things I feel like they think they've anointed quarterbacks. They anointed Jimmy. They anointed Trey. And Brock earned it. And I think they want, if anyone's going to take it from Brock, they got to earn it too. I think that's where they're at with the quarterback position. And maybe there's something to it.
They have to conduct a fair. It has to, you can't,
we're not giving you anything because of your draft status. We're not.
Right. Or not because you had a good year last year. They're going to have to conduct a fair competition, or their own players will push back.
And that's what's interesting about Brock. If he doesn't look like he's the best option in practice because he's rusty, coming off this injury, will the Niners react to that? Will they? But that's a hypothetical that'll play itself out in the next month.
They will if they lose games, or if he turn. I mean, let's be honest. He doesn't have a lot of arm strength to lose. If he's lost some arm strength and some accuracy, what's going to happen? He's going to turn the ball over, and they're going to wind up involved in close games and lose games. If they get involved in early games of the season and they're close and they lose them, then the way the NFL works.
But there's no shame in it. There's no shame. If they were to bench Brock, you could always say, look, it was an ambitious timetable. He wasn't supposed to come back this early. He got a lot of good work. He's not quite ready. We'll come back to him. We're not done with Brock. He's not ready right now. We're not benching him. He's not hurt. They could always do that. So I'm curious. And a day like today makes me wonder if that's where this is going. But at the same time, it's important to remember that it's July 31st. It's July 31st. I think
it's real simple, actually. Brock wasn't given anything last year. He got an opportunity and he took it.
Right.
Trey and Sam won't be given anything this year. They'll be given an opportunity, and whoever takes it and plays the best football It's there. It's absolutely there. I mean, seriously, even if Brock comes out and plays similarly to the way he's played, if Sam Darnold or Trey Lance come out and start throwing just rockets and leading the team up and down the field, and they're not turning it over, and the team's scoring points, and they can take the job away.
I remember I asked Brock the other day. I asked him, has Kyle Shanahan said that you're going to start week 1 barring a setback? And he said no. So he's getting all the first string reps, but he's still under the microscope. What he does in practice still matters. And if he goes out and plays like Brock Purdy, and he'd probably start week 1, but we got 6 weeks left. It's gonna be very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting. And you know what? Sam and Lance are coming. They're right on his heels.
And if you're in this camp that you think that Brock's the number 1 guy and the other 2 guys are not viable competitors, you're wrong.
That's not what we saw today. Like today was the first day where it felt like, okay, this is a real quarterback competition. Because at first I was like, this is a joke. Like all 3 of these guys are struggling. It's like, okay, not today. They're all actually in rhythm and confident right now. Well, except for Brock isn't in rhythm and confident yet, in my opinion, but we've seen him before.
I don't think Brock's arm is back, but Brock is doing things better today than he did at any point last year. For example, last year, the big criticism of Brock, even though he won every game that he started and finished, was that he escaped out the back door. And in the NFL, you can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And what was the argument? What was the number 1 criticism? This guy doesn't step up in the pocket. Well, today he did. Today he stepped up in the pocket. He got rushed. He stepped up in the pocket and made plays. So he's.
Now, I would like to see that in a real game where you can get smacked, but that's true. That's a nice thing to practice.
He did. He showed that today, and that's that. And so but ultimately, it's just going to come down to consistency and who can lead the team to the most consistently and produce first downs and points without making mistakes and turnovers. And that's really what defines Darnold and Lance to this point. Lance has had talent. He's been impressive throwing the football, but he misses some layups, and so he leaves points on the field. Darnold has been an impressive thrower at times of the football, but Darnold turns it over. And so then you got 10 drives in a game.
True.
He turns it over. The last game I watched, he turned it over 4 times. So
what's cool about today is Darnold didn't turn it over today, and Lance hit some layups. Like his last throw of the day from Lance, 3rd and 1, he hits Ayuk on the shallow cross. It's a short. That's a throw that gave Lance problems in the past, because that's a throw you can't throw hard. The shallow cross, right? It's like a wrist throw, and you really got to lead the guy. I mean, that's a throw Brock Purdy hits in his sleep. Lance hit it today. That's encouraging to me. Like, I know he can rip the 15-yard in cut for sure and the out, but like, what about the shallow cross? That was big. You could argue that was his best throw of the day, 3rd and 1. Doesn't mean he'll hit it tomorrow. Doesn't mean he'll hit it tomorrow, but he hit it today. Right.
And it'll be interesting to see how Kyle calls these games.
Yeah.
Because if Kyle gets Purdy in there and he's calling nothing but go patterns and deep balls and the ball's hanging, or then there'll be people saying, well, yeah, that's not Brock's game. If Lance is in there and he's calling all these, middle screens and the short game where your footwork is then suddenly, and then he's inconsistent. There'll be people going, well, wait a second, you're not complimenting your quarterback. So that's going to be another wrinkle to this thing. Kyle will be scrutinized for what kinds of plays he calls for these quarterbacks.
Absolutely. And I'm going to be doing the scrutinizing because I'm such a big Kyle Shanahan fan.